My name is Manoj Agarwal. I'm the group editor at Banking Frontiers, and I handle the magazine, the website, and the video, the content for all these three platforms. And today we have one IT company as a knowledge partner, that is Peridian, along with their brand Beacon.
Abhishek here. I represent Fintri Finance. I basically look after the functions of product alliances as well as co-lending partnerships. Fintri Finance, we are a fintech NBFC company. We basically target to solve the problems faced by the MSME segment in our country.
So this is Akshat Birla. I'm the founder and CEO of Innovate Capital, another fintech or techfin as you may call it. And predominantly we focus on supply chain financing. So we're a very niche player looking at supply chain financing and working with large anchors to help small and medium enterprises in terms of getting working capital financing.
I'm Balasundar. I represent Shriram Transport Finance Company Limited, which is one of the largest asset-backed and asset-based, NBFCs in the country. And we have almost about 1,12,000 crores of AUM in our books.
Thanks, Manoj, for calling for this thing. I represent Hirandani Financial Services. We are again one of the MSME lender in the market. We started our journey almost 2 years back. And we have seen, as Abhishek rightly pointed, a lot of ups and downs in the industry in the last 2 years, starting from FS till now, till COVID. So we're still establishing as an NBFC. We call ourselves as a tech-enabled NBFC, not a fintech.
Hi guys, so this is Rahul Bhargav. So I represent InCred, and it's a relatively new, I don't know what words to use, but I'd say tech-driven financial services company. It's regulated as an NBFC, yes.
So I represent Peridian Technologies. Looking at the alphabetical order, I normally come at the last. No chance of coming to the first. Anyway, I own, the role which I play in Peridian is Director of Banking Solutions.
As an opening question, what kind of questions are you asking yourselves in light of the scenario that we are in today, caused by COVID and lockdown and all that? And then how do you search for those answers? It's simple to ask questions, but so what questions you ask yourself and how do you find those answers? Who wants to start? In no particular order, no alphabetical order here. Rahul, may I ask you to start? Why? Because I think you are the senior most person here.
Well, I don't know if I deserve that title, but nonetheless. See, I think from a business perspective, the question I would ask myself or the company hasn't changed. It would still be 2 words: profitable growth. Where, how, in these scenarios or otherwise, always be that same question. I think on different fronts, especially related to COVID, I do worry about, what happens to office working, for example. Right? We've been working from home all this time, and quite a few of our employees are perfectly fine working from home remotely. Some of them do come in. But I do wonder about all the investments in commercial real estate and what people think of office culture. What does it do to the long-term culture of a company?
Okay.
And how do you, so that sort of becomes like a long-term thing, because by the time this is all said and done, it will be a couple of years.
Interesting, very interesting.
Of course, we take money from the bank and we go to a customer who is not serviced by the bank. And majority of our portfolio is only towards vehicle loans. What we keep thinking about is that truck drivers and truck operators are not very tech savvy, they're not very mobile savvy, and they're not very literate. And our thought process has always been how to make the processes simple, seamless, user-friendly for the customer to use our technology, either for payment of installments or for seeking a loan from us or for taking a working capital loan from us, whatever needs that the customer has today. How does he reach out to us for taking various services using our technology? I think that's what we have been thinking about it. That's what I think we are working on.
Okay.
Overall turnaround time has to come down for a customer in this scenario. And we have technology platform, strong technology platform is in place, which is in place today. However, improvements in the technology is a continuous process, which we are working day in, day out to make the process very simple and seamless and user friendly for our customers. I think that's what I think we've been thinking about it.
Okay, that's interesting.
The first question as a founder I would ask is basically, I mean, how can I sort of take care of my expenses, right? How can I sort of ensure that from a long-term perspective, I'm looking at this correctly? And then the next one is about revenues, right? So when we're talking about sort of expenses as well, I mean, I'm not going to bore the audience with the regular questions, but I mean, essentially, I mean, where am I cutting my expenses, right? How can I find alternatives to this thing? How can I turn the whole business model on its head? Everything as a service is something which is becoming a great model, right? And I'm not required to do any large capital expenditure, and I can turn on and off the tap as required, right? So it started off with cloud servers, right, where you could go onto cloud servers and then get storage the way you wanted, increase, decrease at will, right? It went down to even sales reach out. So we've outsourced a lot of that. Then it came to sort of co-working spaces, right, where we could sort of get seats on demand, right? I mean, I wanted 20 seats, 30 seats, 100 seats. I mean, we're easily able to sort of get that, right? I mean, it's even going down to systems and platforms at the end of the day. And we ourselves have sort of transformed our own business model in terms of, rather than giving the whole supply chain platform at a licensing cost, we've sort of said to our strategic lending partners that we'll give it away for free, right? I mean, you take there's no upfront cost to it, but it's basically a pay-as-you-use model, right? Because that's something that we are seeing, that capital expenditure is something that enterprises are not wanting to do.
So I'll agree with Akshat, especially this applies for all the new NBFC or the fintech players. The first thing you think on the board and you start discussing it, how do you keep afloat? How do you keep sustain yourself in this environment? Whether you redesign your product strategy, let's say doing secured business rather than focusing on unsecured for some time. That also, some of those decisions to start taking, and how we can cut cost. Let's say we have gone to every branch or every landlord where our branch is located. We have a distribution of 20 to 50 branches, though very small in size compared to Shriram and other. But we try to renegotiate the pricing with each and every OPEX kind of a structure and try to reduce our OPEX to a sustainable value in this. So that was one. These are the something which how you keep afloat yourself, number one, and then how you connect with your customer, because there is a very traditional way of connecting with the customer in an NBFC environment. Typically, you lend and kind of in LAP lenders. What happens? You lend for 10 years and you only connect with the customer, either at the time of a cross-sell, upsell, or at the time of collection requirements. Otherwise, don't touch base, and you realize like it's a call away. And then you realize during these days, you need to have a data. There is no call center accessibility. How do you connect with those customers to understand cash flow positions, whether he can pay or not, whether he need a moratorium or not? So those are those certain questions. Then we find out, then we try a diverse way of. Entire sales team was on collection for first 3 months. Not true for me.
Okay.
That was the case. They were going around and knocking the doors of customer, trying to call either through a mobile call, personal visits, whatever they could do. And those times they were trying to connect with the customer and find the situation, how we can solve for it. Because customer, for everyone, it was a new situation. It's not like your HO is not working or one branch is working or otherwise. Entire business, entire country, entire economy was in a standstill to a large point.
I would want to add just one perspective. So we are in the lending business, and primarily our core offering is unsecured lending. And when we look at it, traditionally the questions remain the same: the ability of the customer to pay and the intention of the customer to pay. These are the two primary factors on which we evaluate. Now with the new scenario, what we need to look at is ability has always been a more of a quantitative analysis that we do on the customer, and intention is a qualitative thing that we use different tools to analyze. But more and more with the current scenario, looking at the past 6 months, if the business, even though on paper they might not have those ability numbers coming through, but you can always look at parameters and evaluate them in the new light and probably qualifying them for the requirement which they are coming to you for. So again, from that perspective, we need to look at and how do we use the more of these technological tools and different other revenues for us to evaluate those customers, not just on the traditional way of looking at it from the risk perspective, but also keeping in line, because it's always very imperative for us as a lender to keep on building the books to survive in the longer end of the market. So we need to again improvise and look at these new factors of evaluating customer, and we keep on asking how do we do it in a better way, and how do we make it more of a mix of both traditional understanding as well as a new age understanding that can be available to us to qualify those prospects for us.
No, actually, it's very interesting as I was listening to the folks. I think great points. I would think of those things as drivers of a profitable growth for a business. So you would always deploy technology. You want to be close to your customer. You'll conserve your cash. You would go for minimum capex and so on. I think what has happened now in the last 6 months is that these trends towards digital have sort of been supercharged, right? What people were going to think that it could take 3 years before I really turn this process digital, it is now happening in 3 months, 6 months. And I think that is the huge big change, which basically says if you don't do this right now, you will have a big problem on your hands, right? And normally in other cases, a lot of companies would have thought, I have the luxury of a couple more years, 3 years until this changes.
Right. So many people say COVID is a chief transformation officer, whether for a company or even for the country or for the world as a whole.
Yes.
It's fully transformed us at a pace that is unrecognizable, that is unforeseeable, even among the most progressive of us. Great. So thank you all. Good insights, good broad opening field. Now we'll try to dig in a little deeper. I think Dheeraj was mentioning that even in all the sectors, or all the NBFCs perhaps, it is that the salespeople have become are doing collection work in the first 2-3 months initially. So let's try to dig a deeper into that because this then sounds that this is the need of the hour, the immediate need of the hour. And so how is the people coming into collections from different, from sales and whatever else, operations or something else, can they actually do it without a lot of training or the needed training? Can they deal with a lot of intuition? Do you see them needing to use technology to actually do the job? For example, if you ask me to write a letter without a computer on pen and paper, it's tough. I can do it, but it's tough. So how has the journey been for collections, for the regular collections people and for the people who have temporarily come into the field? How are you making them optimal? Maybe Dheeraj, you can start and then others.
Yeah, that's quite interesting in initial days. Typically, if you see in the April-May month, there was no sales happening any which ways. So the sales is available, and what we allocated his customer to him only. So this is not a new customer he is visiting to first time, right? So most of the sales guys, let's say I have sourced 100 customers in a particular month or a total YTD numbers, and those are the live customers that are allocated to me, and then I'm connecting with them. It's not a collection typical call. It's a typical call to understand his business, where it is heading towards, what is about his cash flow, what is his planning to do next. And then the discussion comes around. So we did a lot of, let's say, web-based understanding that, and we made a questionnaire, what he's going to talk, how he's going to reach the customer, because that was a voice-based calling. Because people not traveling to one another places, and either the RM was also worried about interacting with the people, and the customer was also worried, right? So there was no traveling or personal visit. It was all calling, just asking for how is the customer doing, health-wise, everything is fine. It was a courtesy call, followed with that, what is his cash flows look like, how he's planning for next 3 months, how do we see his business coming up, what is happening in this business segment. And then accordingly, we offered them the moratorium or the restructuring schemes. Let's say he wants for 1 month, he wants for 3 months, he wants for 5 months, or he can pay partially. We explained him that the moratorium is not an interest waiver. Please be aware of that, so that there is no confusion. Because the way, once the circular come, most of the customer understand, government has did that, I don't have to pay anything now. So you have to really base and explain the whole process. Sometime with then online material or whatever. Let's say a lot of, if you see LinkedIn or other social media, a lot of training material were available. We have not prepared anything, but a lot of people have prepared it. So we use some sort of those things to explain the customer that moratorium, he's just extending the problem when his available cash flows and he's getting a regular cash flow is better to pay off
Right.
than accumulating the interest. So my account is also not moving, and there is a more effective way of collecting money. So that is the way we did across the all, because you can't collect from as per the RBI guideline and all. You need a certified person who can go and collect and all those things.
Okay.
Off call based thing where all the sales guys were touch basing with their own customer data and trying to engage. Probably if they want more money also, we try to create some program if the customer was regular, and if in immediate case cash of let's say 50,000, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, whatever, and there is a need which can sustain his business model, let's say a retail kirana store, probably talk more because he's not getting the regular stuffs and he want to store for the period.
Right.
Probably we had offered a couple of them as an additional credit limit. Or we have given them a short-term credit lending for a month or a 2 months time.
Okay. That's interesting. Any other kind of perspective in collections during the initial days of COVID? Yes, Bala. Please unmute, Bala.
So we have a strong field force. We have about 22,000 people who work on the field.
Okay.
And fortunately or unfortunately, we don't have a separate sales team and a collections team. For us, it is one and the same.
Interesting.
And we call him as a relationship executive. He's the one who starts the relationship with the customer. He mobilizes, he sources the lead, he finances him, and he does the collections from the same customer, and he settles the contract with the customer end of the day. So he's the one who is the sourcing executive, he's the one who is the collection executive, and he's the one who is supposed to settle the contract with the customer without loss. So we don't have any separate sales team and collection team and all. As he was rightly pointing out, when the moratorium was given by Reserve Bank of India for the customers for payment of installments, many of the customers, we offered, I think, moratorium scheme to almost 95-96% of the customers.
Okay.
We went on communicating to the customers over phone, saying that this moratorium is not interest free. You got to pay interest for the 6 months period or 5 months period. What will be the number of months that the moratorium is available by the customer? Accordingly, the tenure of the contract gets extended by 6 months, or it may get extended by more than 6 months, because the accumulated interest also becomes part of the contract.
Right.
I think these what we have effectively communicated to the customers. Our field force always, every month, they keep meeting the customer in person. They also understand the cash flows of the customer. They also look at the vehicle that is financed by us. How does the vehicle look like? How is he maintaining the vehicle? Is the vehicle running properly or not? Or does the customer in need of any working capital loans? Because we also keep financing a lot of working capital loans for the customer, for replacement of tires, for insurance policy, for fuel, for repairs and maintenance of vehicle. We keep supporting the customer in number of ways, because we always feel that we are not financing a vehicle, but we're financing a business for the customer. So business includes a lot of working capital loans. Hence, we're financing the customer in toto. Hence, our people believe in meeting the customer every month, interacting with him, getting to know. We get to know about his business, about his freight, about his goods availability, vagara. But in the pandemic time, we were not able to meet the customer for about a month or so in person. But our people have reached the customers over phone. But thereafter, when the things have started easing out, gradually our meetings have started, going up.
Physical meetings.
Okay. But we also given a technology mobile application to the customer for remitting his installments. I think first 1 or 2 months time, even though we could not meet the customers, many of the customers have remitted their installments only using the technology through a mobile application which is given to the customer, B2C app. I think that has made a lot of difference for us in terms of collections.
I can add to that. So for us, right? We looked at the whole collections piece very differently. For us, it's more about how can we ensure putting checks and balances in place that we don't need to sort of go down the collection route a lot, right? So what can we do from the beginning? So for us, it's about each transaction becomes the core of the lending transaction, given its supply chain financing, right? The transaction between buyer and seller, and ensuring that there is right ring fencing of cash flows from the get-go. Right, we ensure that these arrangements are watertight and there's no room for modification, right? Hence, reducing the need of physical collections. Our underwriting also incorporates this very deeply, and the transaction trends, analytics that highlight the red flags, the probabilities of repayments by a certain borrower based on transaction data, and what are the margins we need to set, right? So keep that buffer for us from that perspective. We've also integrated escrows, virtual accounts for
Is
auto
that something this
reconciliations.
you did during when the lockdown started, or this has been the process earlier also? And the same process
So this
helped you
was the
during lockdown.
So this process was there before, but it really got accelerated and turbocharged after the lockdown, right? Ensuring that we don't need to sort of go after collections and making sure that, and every knew that NPAs are going to spike up, right? I mean, what can you do to ensure that you are not at the wrong end of the NPAs is what, supercharged this whole process. Additionally, adding a lot of auto collection capabilities, reconciliation capabilities, bringing in escrows and virtual accounts happened later, right? I mean, post COVID for that matter, I would say.
Did you have to shuffle people? I can understand your systems were turbocharged. Did you have to do any people shuffling like Dheeraj described?
No, I mean, so we had to do reprioritization of our technology in terms of like where our priorities were before COVID to where our priorities were post COVID, right? I mean, so we had to sort of put in rechannel our resources from a technology and product perspective into building these checks and balances out there.
Okay. Great, wonderful. That's also a new perspective. Any other new perspective? I'm looking for new things for your all sake. Yes, Abhishek, please go ahead. Please unmute.
Yeah. Since at Fintree, we primarily target to all these retail MSME customers. So right from your small mom and pop store to Kirana Wala to medical services to food restaurants, fine dine restaurants, they are all part of our target segment. Given the scenario when COVID started happening and we kind of taking the scenarios perspective, how it's going to fold out. What we did was it's probably a mix of what Dheeraj put across in Bala and also to a great level what Akshat did. We looked at our segment into three different perspectives. So one segment was basically which was already giving us trouble in terms of collections, and these were pre-COVID scenario. So there nothing is going to hamper them with regards to COVID being there or not being there. So this particular bucket was given to our collections team because they were the more professional people to handle these, and they were handling it them already. Secondly, the other segment was the essential services segment. So all your pharma stores, kirana stores, all the groceries and milk centers, which were not so much affected by COVID, but in fact they had their business booming to a great extent because of all the lockdown and other things not being available for normal retail customers. These segments were again given to our sales team, primarily again, like Dheeraj was mentioning, just to be there to the face of the customer. And since a lot of these customers, a lot of the other companies, they had stopped funding these people. So there was an opportunity we can look at and probably, fund them more because they were having more needs to have more stocks. They were requiring more working capitals. So again, from a collections perspective, we were there. We were being with them, being in touch with the customer. And also it was a building upon the more sales of the from the segment, so to speak. The other segment which was in between, wherein we knew that the customer has all the intention to repay. It's a scenario which is unfolding because of the COVID happening, market being shut. Probably he's lying into a red zone, so to speak. That's where more of my soft collections team, more of my relationship management skills came into picture. We were kind of handholding them. We were trying to help them get onto a tech platform, so to speak, maybe reach out to their customers through a WhatsApp-based model or through a Facebook-based model if they can have some sort of sales happening for them. We started handholding and consulting them on those levels as well, so that they have some churning of their business. They might generate some income. They might not pay me entirely right now, but they may pay me some amount from them. And once again, it gives me a good brand equity when the business turns into a regular scenario. They'll always have this thing, okay, we were there for them in the longer time. So probably that will also help us in the longer another scheme of the thing. So once you look at it from that perspective, it is to be looked at differently from different angles is what we did over the period.
Okay. Very interesting. Rahul, do you have some different kind of perspective for this situation?
Yeah, actually a couple of things. But one thing I would say is that we've always looked at collection as a very, very important component of what we need to do. So it was always tech enabled in the sense that we would always get a eNACH from a person, so we can always pull the money, and only in certain cases where they couldn't, right, the things will go into collections, having a graded collection strategy, starting with telesales and then some calling. Every customer would have a mobile app, they'll get a notification there. All the digital payment methods on the digital app, but also when it gets to field collection, our agents also carry a mobile app themselves. So the managers can know what is the route they are taking, which areas are safe to go. They can plan the day much better.
Okay.
Right. So that was already there in place. I think in COVID, two new things I would point out. One was a very strong, extraordinary focus by senior management to have very regular process control on collections. So apart from the technology and all the issues that our field collections folks were facing, it sort of became a senior management rhythm that every night there would be a call of so what's happening in collections, where are the areas where we have problems, which people have been able to go out, what is the efficiency, what do we need to change for tomorrow, right? So this kind of a focus on process, because it was a crucial time, as some people have already pointed out, where there was some education because of moratorium, right? Customers were genuinely in some difficulty, right? So it required a more closer management than, right? So that was one thing new.
Okay.
And based on that, we also launched a new product while we were doing this. Because you see, the thing is, it is real, right? That people were in financial difficulty. So as Dheeraj was saying, the ability to pay was getting impaired, right?
Right.
Our view was that ability to pay is not permanently impaired. It would be temporarily impacted, right? And India would come back. So we launched something called an easy EMI, where we said, as you come off the moratorium, you can pay only payments for the next 12 months. Your loan tenure will be extended. Your cash flow is safe. And then your regular payments will start, right, after 12 months. So it kind of gave them a breathing space.
Okay.
So coming off of the moratorium,
So what is your take on the processes, on the technologies, on the people shuffling? And as a technology company, then, how does your technology work in regular situations and in special situations?
Yeah, Manoj. So really excited to hear the different perspectives from Bala, from Rahul, Akshad, Abhishek, everybody, for that matter. And yes, coming to the question, bringing more efficiency in loan collection, which is the need of the hour. I would say catch the loans early. Second one would be put consistent efforts in follow-up. Actually, Rahul was mentioning a couple of things during his last point. Absolutely. So the better we manage these things, more effective our collection will be. So let me tell you a story, a real life story from Spiridion case study. See, one of the leading scheduled bank in Mumbai with branches across 3 states. I may not be able to mention the bank name. Maybe later I can. So we implemented early warning system about a year back there. So this bank do a business of more than 4,000 crore, out of which 1,500 crore is loans spread across 7,000 to 8,000 customers. They had an NPA of 9%, more than 1,000 customers under NPA, and again about another 2,000 under overdue SMA kind of path. And again, see, 20 to 30 people look after their collection from their group office, head office and all. And they started follow-up action when they fall into overdue. That is a kind of scenario. And the monthly collection, ideally, the demand is of about 18 to 20 crore of the bank, but the actual collection was about 10 to 12 crores on an average monthly.
Okay.
So now, see, on implementing, see, we have a solution called early warning system solution. We have multiple predefined signals which we provide. Out of that, it's about nearly 100 scenarios are there. But out of this, about 36 signals, this bank particularly took up. Initially itself, we were able to give about 100 to 120 different warnings for their about 100 plus loan accounts. And these loan accounts was completely regular, no default happening, everything was glossy. But now it was really real insights to them. They started taking action on these loans and realized that these signals were very, very relevant. After the first quarter, on implementing this EWS collection, their collection went up more than about 10%, about 14 crores, 14.5 crores, and it was consistently increasing month on month. Now they tell that when we catch them early, it is very fruitful than going when the damage is already happened. Now, see, the interesting thing is this: the result is directly hitting the bottom line. Which our topic of today. A small improvement in collection will show good improvement not only in NPA but overall the efficiency of the company. See, interestingly, last week, actually, our chief economic advisor, Mr. Krishnamurthy Subramanian, I don't know whether we were aware about that actually, was stressing about the financial sector has miles to go, he was telling. Like it was during one FICCI NBFC summit, which was happening on October 29th, last week.
Okay.
And he told the use of technology can be far higher in financial sector. He was stressing the importance, simple things like tracking related party transactions, data on promoters pledge, quality of financial statements can enable you to infer the ability of willingness to repay, which is exactly what we are doing. Our solution do much more in these lines. Without technology, yes, this may not have happened for sure.
That's interesting. From 10 crores to 14 crores is quite a substantial jump. After implement, I don't know, it took a month or two to. How long did it take to start getting the benefit to jump from 10 to 14?
Yeah, so the implementation typically took about 2 to 3 months of time. And then again, after 1 month of this, teething issues and all, yeah, I think the results starting increasing from second month, third month onwards. And it was increasing actually. And the real good thing, to highlight, the team was very much excited about that. And so they were inclined to use that solutions more and more actually.
My question then to all of my panels here is a different kind of question. Whether some ideas that came from your teams internally, this is a better way to do this, whether it is collections or connecting with the customer or collecting the relevant data, those kind of things. Some, feel for some ideas from lower down. Anyone want to share 1 or 2 examples? Akshat, yes.
So I can share a example around how we sort of built out something for our retail segment, right? I mean the merchants and retail segment, and we built both the mobile and desktop capabilities. But what we realized was that a lot of these guys were comfortable sort of calling for discounting requests through the RMs or using WhatsApp basically.
Okay.
Right. So essentially, we used the time during the lockdown to completely transform and create a WhatsApp only channel, right, where we do the entire onboarding, communication, and even collections for that matter through WhatsApp, right? I mean, and we are enabling the bots, machine learning, and all of that in WhatsApp itself, because we see that as a channel which is going to be the preferred channel for the consumer of that particular segment, right? I mean,
Okay.
so that was one insight that we got, where we were able to sort of implement and sort of create something quite unique. I feel.
Sure. Yeah. So now we built this thing a short while ago, but in the current environment, sales started using it much more effectively than we ever thought. So this was about, as you know, in lending, people tend to usually do a field investigation before the loan is made available.
Yes.
So we said, it requires a field visit. Somebody has to go to their house, look around. It's usually a 1-2 day turnaround process. We said, what if we kind of gave customers a self-FI option, right? Which is using technology, because all we're trying to understand is the person lives where he says he lives. He's able to provide an address. We can verify that address. We built this into our mobile app, and we said, okay, we'll try and see if how customers like it, how they can use it. But when COVID hit, all our salespeople came up and said, no, I want to use this, and if this looks good, then I can skip field investigation, right? And so we still retain field investigation, right? Whenever there's a potential of fraud or something, we retain. But where we have a good confidence in the customer, sales actually asks for it and says, I want to use self-FI.
Fantastic. Superb.
Yeah, similarly to this, we also implemented something called PD. There's a personal discussion app. Credit guy visits the customer. That was a mandate as per policy or defined credit policy. So that was again the same coming from the ground, that instead of doing that, because the credit guy was at his home and he can't go there to visit and meet the customer at his shop, Then the sales guy said, why don't we do a PD? And they sent a couple of videos recorded on their mobile device initially. And that's how we started. And later on, we thought, yeah, that's a good idea. And we just find a solution to integrate and attach it, just an attachment in our lending platform, so that it available as a record for any future references. That's a more evident record than a piece of paper where somebody is signing. This is a video record that, let's say something like I record this entire panel session. There is a formal recording what I said and what you understood.
Yes. We have a connection problem at Dheeraj end.
Right. Rather than writing on a piece of paper, implemented from a credit PD personal discussion so-called perspective.
Then a couple of you gave examples of how you modified the product or the offering and all that. The question then is that how do you do that optimally? In the sense, you could extend the loan period of the loan, you could you could change the EMI, you could ask for some more collateral if that made sense, you could extend further loan, all kinds of things you can do. And some of them have regulatory conditions what you can do, some you are flexible about. So how do you do it optimally? How, as an organization, were you able to do it optimally and keeping compliance in mind? Did you face an issue in that? Maybe customers came up with some kind of requirements which were outrageous. Maybe customers were not aware of what kind of flexibilities they could avail of from you. How did you manage that complexity? Any examples? Any thoughts?
Manoj,
Yes, Bala.
we have a large customer base. And as I said initially, the transportation industry and the allied activities came to a standstill when the lockdown was announced.
Right.
So when the Reserve Bank of India has given us the indication that you can offer the moratorium to your customers, okay, there are different institutes taking a different stand. One is opt-in, second one is opt-out. Opt-in means the customer has to apply to a bank or the lender that is looking for a moratorium scheme. Then the lender offers him moratorium. But opt-out is a scheme wherein the lender gives across the board to all the borrowers, and the borrower has to opt out if he doesn't want the moratorium scheme to be availed. We've chosen the second option of opting out.
Okay.
We are given the moratorium scheme to all the borrowers across the board.
Okay.
And we told the customers that if you want to opt out, you can opt out. If you have money to pay, you pay. If you do not have money to pay, you need not pay for next 6 months. But we kept on insisting that if you have money, better to pay because you can save on interest. Otherwise, the interest gets accumulated. And how do you pay interest? As soon as the moratorium is over, either you can increase the EMI amount thereafter. See, the moratorium was given for a period of 6 months from March 2020 to August 2020 for 6 months time. And again, September 2020 onwards, the installments have started again. So customer has an option of increasing the EMI amount from September onwards to, offset the interest that is accumulated during the 6 months time. Or if the customer says that, no, I've already chosen the installment amount, what I can afford to pay. So don't increase installment amount, but increase the tenure. Here's an option. But what we did was across the board, we did not increase the installment amount from September because the installment amount is the one which is chosen by the customer, saying that you can afford to pay only that much. Hence, we did not increase the installment amount from September. We kept the same installment amount, what is chosen by the customer initially at the time of agreement. So we increased the tenure of the loan. Initial tenure could have been 36 months. Now 36 became 45. Because 42 plus 3 months probably interest. So these what we did across the board. We increased the tenure of the customers for every loan, keeping the same installment amount from September onwards.
I want to hear from someone who has a different kind of problem. Bala has a situation where his customer segment is uniform, his product is almost the same. Do any of you have a variety of customers and a variety of products? And then what is the approach you chose?
What we
Dheeraj.
A slightly different thing. We again, as I said, connected with the customer and try and understand. We have not offered a blanket 3-month or a 6-month moratorium. It was on need to know, need to understand basis. He feel is, let's say, can he pay the current month? So every month I go back to the customer, and that was a relevant point because I wanted to go back to the customer and connect with him for next 6 months. I don't know how long it will go on and all that. So we offered every month we'll go and say, can you pay?
Mm-hmm.
If he's saying, no, I can't pay, then again, there was an opt-in method. He has to just send a mail. Probably the sales guy will send on his behalf that I have spoken to the customer. He want to opt in, and then we'll give for that month. Next month, again, we say if the situation improves. And in certain scenarios, they say, no, next day, who can't pay because there is no cash flow. Only those segment we offered for, let's say, blanket 3 months, 6 months.
I want to kind of broaden the issue. Right now, we're talking more of COVID specific, but if we talk post COVID and pre COVID also, then what kind of loan modifications or engagement modifications with the customer have you done, and how have you tried to do it optimally? Like some of the customers may be tending towards NPA or might have actually gone into NPA even before COVID, which is like an ongoing situation for some percentage of customers. So during those periods and in the current scenario, how are you looking at re-engaging with customers in different ways? Anyone?
So,
Yeah, Rahul.
let's venture a thought, Manoj, because, as you were asking earlier, we have a diverse set of customers. On one hand, we have, small businesses. We have certain schools that we lend to for expansion. We have also the large retail consumer base for unsecured personal loans. So I'd say the strategy tends to be different for each one, right? For some of the larger ticket loans like schools, it's a very one-on-one interaction, understanding and collecting fees. How do you make sure that the payments can happen on time and so on, right? So it's a very one-on-one consultative approach. And on the other extreme, you've got the consumer retail loans, which is by the thousands, right? And small, large populations. So there we have to take a more systematic view where we say, given the volumes, there are 2 or 3 different options here, and people fall in this kind of option 1, 2, or 3, right? And then this is what we can talk to them, which makes it a scalable communication, right? So that's the approach we've been taking. Now going forward, I think it's coming down to, can we make it a very individualized decision going forward?
Okay.
Obviously, it has to be compliant, right? But can the technology and other things help me, despite the scale, allow to deal with customer at an individual level? Because otherwise, for a large portfolio with thousands and thousands of customers, this one-on-one discussion that you could do with a large ticket loan borrower would not be possible.
Correct. Obviously. True. What do you have to say to what Rahul just mentioned, using technology for doing this on a larger scale? How can a bank leverage this, a bank or lender, any kind of lender? You're on mute.
Yeah, Manoj. See, again, very variety of perspectives from our panelists. See, looking at the loan modification, I think we can see it as an opportunity to enhance your customer relationship. See, what does it mean? While a customer is already in struggle and on tough time, how can we do this? Most of the customer, does not know what is the best alternative for them in this during their tough time. Now, financial institutions, according to us, should wear, actually are wearing the hat of financial guide or mentor to their customers. Using technology, we can help you, of course. Let me tell you the story of Indian Bank. See, again, it's a big public sector bank based in Chennai, we all know. Recently, Allahabad Bank got merged to this bank, and this happens before the merger. About 2 to 3 years before, RBI came out with a mandate, to provide one-time settlement option to its customers, to all the customers of bank. This was one important step to reduce NPA levels and all. Many banks started doing many things. Top management of these bigger banks and all devised methods, formulated, created formula, to decide on the haircut, how much haircut we can afford to. And then they started publicizing this. I think it is during 2018 beginning time, then started happening the real problem. Customers also started reaching out to the branch managers, to know that what is that they can do, what is their best option, how to avail this one-time settlement, whether it will be loss or benefit, whatever. Now the branch manager, things start in a very difficult shape for them, because managers is already overburdened. Any branch manager, we know that nowadays. On top of this came the complex calculation to arrive at, and they were not able to do proper justice to that. And during that time, Indian Bank was entrusted Speridian to manage this devices solution for that. See, what we captured all the business rules to the system, into the system, provided various levers for the bank person, not necessarily the branch manager, to do their calculation. And there is a escalation. I mean, there is an approval system for this PSBs. Everything cannot be decided by the branch manager. Okay. So automated escalation to higher authorities, approval based on their size of loan in various levels and all. Now all were completely systematic, automated, and so it was very fast. Mm-hmm. And we designed and extended an arm to the customer also, so that he or she can log into his mobile app or bank's portal, find his best alternative, do some homework from his side, and then bank started entrusting each of these customers to a junior person of the branch. And then all these communication started happening over the phone. Once everything was settled, normally the customer reach out to the branch, sat with the manager, decided and go ahead. I mean, see, you will not believe, actually, they could receive about 11,000 one-time settlement requests in 5 months after the go live of this solution, and could settle about 8,700 of them, and directly hitting the bottom line. I mean, this was so excited the bank people. It was never like that before that period, before this one-time settlement solution implemented. Actually, see, the story does not end there. What we did, we extended this solution to all types of loan modifications. We created a what if analysis tool, seamlessly, easily manageable to the customer and even for the branch also, for any NBFC for that matter. And then we enhanced this solution to the entire loan portfolio, so that the NBFC or the bank can find out how it will impact my bottom line for that matter. So the point is, see, if we provide good modification options to the customer, loan modification, I stress upon that, it will directly increase your bottom line, and at the same time your customer will be getting a great relief. They will come back to you after their tough time, for sure.
So it gives the bank greater flexibility, or the lender greater flexibility and the borrower also, both of them, I think. Yeah.
Correct.
It's a broader playing field rather than a very narrow. Yeah, that's interesting.
That's right.
In fact, that's what technology is doing to it, is customizing more and more and more. Any kind of product, not just a financial product. Even a phone or a laptop or whatever, you get much more variety today than you got 10 or 20 years ago. That's cool. Let me ask our participants here, what was, if you could briefly touch upon, specifically the use of technology since the whole discussion is about fortifying the bottom line with data and technology. From the technology perspective, can you share something specific that you did, some technology augmentation that you did, or data augmentation that you did pre-COVID, post-COVID, that really had a great impact?
So basically, we had always on this endeavor to incorporate the traditional underwriting practices and amalgamate them with the new age technology and other opportunities that we can seek upon in due course of time. And also, so what we did, Dheeraj and one of the other panelists mentioned, right from the FI to PD, we always started asking questions that why do we need these processes and why they were part of the traditional underwriting. And we made to understand, because the time and the volume and the credit structure was so that it was necessary at the time. But given the scenario right now, so we went a step ahead, probably what Dheeraj mentioned. We do a live video call our credit team does. And the customer, it's a very interactive PD wherein the customer is there at his business premises. And whatever inquiries or clarifications or any further information which my credit guy needs to understand from him to better evaluate his case, he is doing that right on the, at the real time basis. What it does primarily, it helps us on a lot of different levels. First of all, it reduces my cost. So my person, there's a direct cost, he need not to travel to that place. Secondly, indirect cost, he can do, I mean, 7 8 PDs in a day. So a person, if I maybe in Bombay or Bangalore or any place, my guy can do it from his comfort, and the person can also attend, applicant can also attend from his own comfort. So that is one thing we did. Uh, Again, from the sourcing perspective, when COVID started happening and we were moving into a digital sourcing of the cases, we also integrated the video KYC as one of our primarily
Okay.
source of verification of the customer's identity. And though there are some teething issues, because like I said, our customer base, they are the bottom of the pyramid, the fancy term which we use all the time. So technology is not really available as a primary source for them, but also a lot of times the data, the connectivity, and the handset would be a challenge. But again, the field force is there for the rescue. They meet the customer, they educate them, and we have started doing the video KYC. So again, what it has done, it has also reduced my cost of FI to a great level. And so too, I mean, on the other smaller levels, I'm sure a lot of other panelists and companies are doing it. So a lot of these verification or FCU or RCU checks, which are part of the traditional way of evaluating application, is now kind of being more and more redundant. So all your KYCs and different other documents you can verify at the real-time basis through different API integration that you can have. And again, it helps me both directly in the terms of cost that I need to incur to get this verified, and indirectly because my TAT becomes much faster. It helps me procure more clients, and it's also to a great level at certain segments. It's a customer delight that I had applied for a loan yesterday evening, and the next day afternoon I've got the payment in my account as well. So that is how we've been using this to ease out both cost, involvement of human interference, as well as bringing more delight to the customer.
Interesting. Akshat, you were also, I think, going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to add to that, but I think Abhishek covered almost everything, right? I mean, so from a digital journey, I think this has been a great way. So we were quite digital, right? We were not 100% digital before, but what COVID did is that enabled all these things, right? From your video KYC to your PDs, to your discussions, everything, to even the signing, which is happening now through e-signing, right? Everything end to end has become digital for us. Right. So that's been the whole process improvement for us. The second thing that we have done is sort of use data to also sort of, one of the big aspects that we have focused on is been the risk mitigation, right? How can we utilize data and additional data in absence of all the physical things that we were doing before? So going and physically visiting, that's being supplemented by video KYC, right? So how do you sort of ensure that there are other checks and balances in place that are put in place, right? So I think Vinod mentioned on early warning signal. So that's something that we worked on organically at our end in terms of creating 15, 20 early warning signals in terms of, what will ensure that, we are monitoring very closely and understanding before even a loan sort of hits an NPA sort of a situation, right? I mean, being supply chain financing, we are probably the ones which are lucky enough to sort of see transactions come in very frequently. Our loans are 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. But so we are able to see that, signs come through much earlier than anybody else does, right? So we have focused a lot on that in creating all these analytics, early warning signals, and all of that to ensure that, our risk mitigation is as good as it can be right now, right? I mean, so that's another thing that we have supercharged after COVID, essentially, to complement basically going completely digital.
Interesting. So, gentlemen, it's now like 4:12. Maybe we should wind up in another 4-5 minutes. Let me put my last question to all of you, and maybe if you can give me a 30-second reply or 45-second reply, under 1 minute reply, that should be good. And I'm just trying to take a macro view. Let's go 2-3 years into the past and cover a span of 2-3 years into the future. In the past, have you invested more in efficiency or speed or risk management? Overall, what do you see? In the next 2-3 years, what do you see the focus of investment, IT and data investment going into? More of speed, more of customization, more of risk management, more of compliance, maybe for some of you. more of just plain business expansion, scalability. Instead of 1,000 customers, you handle 5,000 customers. What do you see in the future? What have you learned from the past in terms of focus of an investment? And how do you then plan to take it into the future? That will share among you a more industry perspective for all of you. Maybe we can go in reverse alphabetical order since we started in alphabetical order. Rahul, maybe you can give your perspective last couple of years, next couple of years.
Okay. So see, I think my perspective on technology has always been the same, that yes, you should invest in technology because it gives you business results, right? That's not a secret. But
Right.
if I think the long-term investment, like going forward, should be where you expect like 10x returns, right? So don't be satisfied with, I spend 100 rupees and I save 100 rupees of cost, or like those are really paltry returns, frankly. If it increases, the ops cost by a little bit here and there, that's expected, that's normal, right? But I think the areas, and this is what has happened in the past, right? It's always been incremental gains, either a little bit increase in revenue, little bit decrease in cost. I think in future, technology should be used to really open up either new segments of business entirely, which could double, triple your book, or it could be that there is at least a 10x impact, because the kind of people you will need to hire to do this will come at a certain cost, right? So these would have to then justify their cost, and that's where I think the transformative part comes in. And to our earlier point, we were saying, are we an NBFC? Are we a fintech? Are we a tech fin? I think future belongs to companies who do both. You can't do one or the other. You've got to have tech. You've got to understand the financial implications of what you're doing. And the companies which get it right, you can call them whatever you want, but they will be the ones who really succeed.
No, in hindsight, would you say that the industry has underinvested in technology? Or
I would definitely say that.
Right? Okay.
I would definitely say that.
More proactive.
This is a very interesting debate on the IT capex whenever it's talked about. What is the optimal value of investment you want to invest? There is nothing called, in my view, in general, the way I see, there is any amount is efficient enough, it gives you a dollar value, or if it is give you a return. You have to correlate the IT cost to return what you can expect. Around that, the 10x return, definitely, it's a wonderful if business can, commit that kind of a business value to be bring to the table. Definitely, you should invest whatever X dollar value. But you have to define every company, as Rahul rightly pointed out, they have to find their niche out, that what exactly they want to invest in and how do you want to get a ROI for. Because that's a key question these days across the industry. Because I'll be brutally say that everybody uses the digital word to the best of their understanding. I would put in a one-liner, like in a very simple sense. Let's say during COVID, we actually not did, as an industry, nobody did any digital thing overnight. Whatever projects teams were working or companies were working, definitely they were. We just try and enable a virtual workplace for our employees, stakeholders, internal stakeholders, for the customer, for the sale. So we just virtualize the thing because physically nobody was available. In a short span, and people just did from whatever they were doing manually at office or digitally at office, they would just try to virtualize it. So can I do it from anywhere kind of a concept?
I think, about 2-3 years ago, I think probably we were going at a moderate pace.
Okay.
Probably, I think during the last 2-3 years, I think our pace has gradually picked up. Thanks to this COVID, it has, we are doing with a better pace. I think we have strong technology platforms today, and we are heavily investing in digital and mobile technologies.
Okay.
But, we got to ensure, probably every business has to ensure that what is apt for your business and what is, suitable for your customer. It is not that somebody has implemented some technology, so let us borrow from him and implement in our business. But what suits your business and what suits your customer is the important aspect that we got to look at. I think we are, as I said, we are investing heavily in various platforms. And the major challenge that we have is that not only investing in the digital technology or the mobile technology, but we've got to ensure that our customer, is aware about usage of the technology, and that will bring the success for us.
Absolutely.
Success is
That's a
not
very
invest
good
money in
point.
the digital, but make your customer aware about the technology that you have, and how does he use the technology to avail services from you. I think that's what is the key changer. That's what I think we are trying.
Yes,
Is what,
I think that's a
yeah.
new point and a very interesting point. Thank you, Bala. Akshat, your take on
Yeah.
past and future investments?
So I completely agree with Bala, right? I mean, on this one, I mean, in terms of from a technology perspective, I mean, giving the right technology, because in the past, what's been the issue or has been penetration, right? I mean, the penetration of credit itself wasn't there. Getting access to credit for a lot of the segments in terms of MSMEs and SMEs was already a big deal, right? Now, access and penetration is already increasing. So what's the next bounce going to be, right, for the ball? It's going to be the customer experience, right? How seamlessly are you able to sort of provide him the financing? At what stage are you able to provide him the financing, right? I mean, that's going to be very important. I mean, when he needs to use it, if you can provide him the financing at that point of transaction, that is going to be, creating a very seamless flow of financing as part of the transaction, right? So which is where we are looking at, right? I mean, this has happened on the consumer front already. On the business front, this is still not happening, right? I mean, and it is happening gradually. So I see a big shift going towards that side, similar to where pay later product is available for a consumer. I mean, these things are going to be very readily available to businesses as well, and that's what Finovate's focus is going to be as well.
And just to add on to that, do you think that companies like yours are going to extend beyond financing into other kind of related financial services to make it seamless?
No, absolutely. Because I mean, see, at the end of the day, financing is one way of getting a foot in the door, right? I mean, it's the best way of sort of gaining the trust of the consumer, and then essentially becoming the one-stop shop makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, offering them insurance at the end of the day, offering them growth capital at the end of the day, offering them banking services. Can all happen once you've got connected to the customer with the right technology platform, right? So again, I mean, early days, but eventually we do look at in the next 2 to 3 years transforming into something like that.
Okay. So now I think Abhishek, your learnings from the past and suggestions for the future.
Yeah, sure. I totally agree with the points which I would put across right now. It has been mentioned earlier, the primary business that we are into is lending, and technology has to be the enabler or the catalyst to what we do. And again, like Bala said, we cannot have a copy paste approach. We need to really understand that where we are standing in terms of our position as an organization with regards to where we want to be, and also look at what's the industry or environment scenario is unfolding in front of us. We can always make use of the technology, and it has to be on all sides of the business. Like, for example, right from your processing, underwriting to sourcing, and even the protection or the security of your organization that you need to look at. And the stage which you are into will kind of direct you how much you need to invest into technology. But what I believe, technology investment would always be one of the major portion of your investments, and it has to be something which we'll have to live with, maybe for good or the worse, whatever you want to call it. But yes, it's gonna be there, and it's gonna be for a long time for now.
Okay.
For all of us.
Okay.
Yeah, see, appreciate all the panelists' view on this, about technology. It is not about what technology we use. There are enormous technologies to be used. So the point is how effectively, almost all panelists agree, how to, optimally use technology. And again, as Bala highlighted, how your customer is aware about and how your customer also is, accommodated into the system. Really interesting. And that is where Speridian also stands. See, we have multiple banking customers, NBFC customers, corporate, right from the bigger banks, national and international. So we provide solutions, and it is very interesting to work with this entire segment of banking. Our core banking system is being working in smaller banks and mid-sized banks. More than 200 customers are there. See, working with core banking, smaller customers really made us lot more innovative. we found out a lot. See, in first week of our demonetization thing, no, our 2016 November 8, just in 1 week time, one of our smallest cooperative bank in Kerala, Tenyipalam Rural Cooperative Bank, it is there in YouTube. They managed to provide the QR code based fund transfer and to all their customers, kirana shop, vegetable shop, fish market, auto rickshaw wala, in that small village, we provided solution. And during those time, Paytm were all yet to evolve. Similarly, NBFC customers during this COVID time, auto collection solution, NBFC's collection through BBPS, and regional language. That is yet another challenge. We have this mobile app, everything is there. But what about the very common customers? So we provide every communication to these customers through regional language. So which means they can interact through their mobile app, even not even typing and is required. They can communicate over the voice, it will be converted, whatnot. So we provide technology seamlessly to the customers and in an optimal way. I think that is how I should look at this particular point.